the designated hearing body for a range of land use applications, including general plan amendments, rezones, conditional use permits, and amendments to the zoning code. Upon recommendation by the Commission, general plan amendments, rezones, and zoning code amendments proceed forward to the Peoria City Council for final action. For conditional use permits, the Commission will make a final decision subject to appeal. All hearings are conducted in accordance with the rules for procedure requirements to allow an impartial and efficient hearing, and all Commission meetings are open to the public under the Arizona Open Meeting Law. Each case will be called in the order in which it appears on the agenda unless otherwise announced during the meeting. Once called, City staff will give a presentation of the case, followed by a presentation from the applicant if they so desire. After the applicant's presentation, members of the public who have submitted a speaker's request form will be called to speak by the Commission Chair. The applicant may be called to provide additional information, clarification, or a rebuttal. The Commission will discuss the case, may ask additional questions, and take action. Any member of the public wishing to speak must complete a speaker's request form and hand it to the planning assistant at the end of the dais. When speaking, please limit your comments to a maximum of 3 minutes and try not to repeat statements already made by others. We welcome your comments, and as fellow citizens of Peoria, we thank you in advance for your participation.
I would like to call the meeting of the February 19th, 2026 meeting of the Peoria Planning and Zoning Commission to order. Welcome everyone, especially the community members that are here and that will engage in the civic process. Let's begin tonight with a roll call. Commissioners, please indicate your presence after I call your name. I'm going to start with Chair Leila Villasenor. Not present. Commissioner Nate Cottrell.
Present.
Commissioner Julia Gia.
Present.
Commissioner Tony Fighter.
Present.
Commissioner Sean Hutchinson.
Present.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
And Commissioner Josephine Whitman Powell is not. Oh, yes, you are. You're sneaking behind me.
Oh, you didn't see me there, Chair?
No.
Well, hello.
Hello.
Present. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. This is the final call for speaker request forms. If you'd like to address the commission tonight, please fill out a speaker request form. We have them available at the entrance. The first item of the agenda is part of the consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda are considered routine in nature and will be enacted by one motion. I'm going to read the 1C disposition of absence to approve or excuse the absence of Commissioner Tony Fighter from February 5th, 2026 meeting, and 2C minutes from the February 5th, 2026 meeting. With that said, do I have a motion for the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion. We approve consent agenda items as presented.
I second.
Commissioner Cottrell makes the motion. Commissioner Whitman Powell seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I'm sorry, all those in favor, press the button.
Aye. Oh.
It's working. Okay, motion passes. Okay, we now move on to new business. The next two items will be presented simultaneously but voted on separately. 3R is a minor general plan amendment. The Shops and the Cove, LLP, and Deer Valley, GPA 26-06. And 4R, rezoning, again, the Shops and the Cove, LLP, and the Deer Valley Road, Z25-12. Staff, please present.
Thank you, Chair, members of the Commission. We're just getting the PowerPoint up here for you. In just a second, as you referenced, we will be looking to present these cases as one set of material and then looking for two separate actions at the end of that presentation. So with that, we are looking at a minor general plan amendment, GPA 25-06, and a rezoning request, Z25-12. And we'll just give a brief pause for dramatic effect. All right.
I don't have any jokes tonight, so we'll, oh, there we go. Look at that, that was quick.
Yes.
It's a good,
We have excellent technical support here, so it happens quickly.
thank you.
So the case before you tonight is being brought to us by Rose Law Group on behalf of Lennar Homes. They were the recent winners of an auction of state land at the northeast corner of Lake Pleasant Parkway in Deer Valley for approximately 24.2 acres. As I had referenced, the request is both for a minor general plan amendment to change the land use designation of the site, as well as a rezoning request. Ultimately, those requests are to facilitate the development of approximately 8 acres of commercial and about 16 acres of single-family residential, which would accommodate about 105 lots on the site that you see here on the screen. So request item 3R is to modify the land use designation from the existing mixed-use Main Street designation on the site to mixed-use neighborhood village. Those two phrases sound very similar, but ultimately what is intended by that is a difference in intensity, scale, and scope of those land uses. And we'll get into this a little bit more further in the presentation, but ultimately, mixed-use Main Street is thought of as kind of those classical vertical mixed-use developments that you would see in high-intensity areas. So think of things like Kierland Commons as a good example of that. Mixed-use neighborhood village, on the other hand, seeks to provide an opportunity to have an integration of uses while having it focus more so on the context of those boundary conditions and provide a little bit lower intensity and scale than what you would contemplate with something like a Kierland Commons. So in this case, looking for compatibility with surroundings and integration between the uses rather than that vertical mixed use element. So item 4R is the rezoning request. Currently, the site is zoned general agricultural or ag. They are looking to rezone the property to planned area development, which, as you know, staff often brings proposals for that for your evaluation. It's essentially a customized zoning district to accommodate a proposed development, and we'll get into the details of that as we go forward. So just to give a little context of the area, surrounding this site really is primarily developed, especially at the corner. There is some remaining vacant state land that you can see on the site, in the area. But ultimately, immediately adjacent to this property on the other sides of the rights-of-way, you see existing development in place already. So to the north, you have the Meadows single-family residential development that is north and east. So both of those subdivision components are contained within the Meadows. And then immediately abutting to the south, you have Deer Valley Road, which is an arterial roadway, followed by the Camino al Lago Marketplace to the south of that. Camino al Lago Marketplace is anchored by Walmart and EOS Fitness. And then to the southwest of the signalized intersection there, you have Camino al Lago Parcel 12. And I promise I'm not doing this to be rude, it's just so I don't cough into the mic. But within Camino al Lago Parcel 12, you have detached single-family residential. West of Lake Pleasant Parkway is Casa del Rey. That's another single-family residential development. That has a little bit different form, and we'll get into that as we go through the presentation. But ultimately, that is reflective of kind of a transition in intensity as you approach that Parkway arterial intersection there at Lake Pleasant and Deer Valley. So as we had referenced, the site in question was previously owned by state land. It was auctioned off in April. Commission is often viewing cases anymore that have been prior state land auctions. So just to fill you in on some background there, state land acts as the trustee for the beneficiaries of the state land trust, and they hold the state land in that trust until such time as they feel it's reached its pinnacle value, and then auction it off. As you can see, the infrastructure surrounding this area is in existence today, and so state land felt it prudent to conduct the auction to sell off this property as an infill site. As we had talked about, the mixed-use Main Street designation that currently exists on the site really contemplates a form that when you're evaluating the context of the surrounding area is different than what you may look to see as it relates to those boundary conditions. So for example, the Meadows single-family residential development to the north and east is detached single-family, about 5,000 to 6,000 square foot lots. And then you have the arterial road of Deer Valley followed by Camino Lago Marketplace, which though it is commercial, is not of a tremendous intensity that you would find in some of those more regional draw commercial areas. From a land use standpoint, once you get outside of the existing site, it's essentially surrounded by suburban residential, which calls for 5 to 12 dwelling units per acre. Now, when you're looking at the context of that, the developments that currently exist under that land use category, by and large, fall slightly under that 5 dwelling units per acre category. So you're more so looking in the range, particularly with the Meadows, as well as Casa del Rey, of anywhere from 3 to a little bit north of 4 there. Particularly when you are evaluating west of Lake Pleasant Parkway with Casa del Rey, and we'll touch on that a little bit further. The zoning for the subject site, as we had referenced, is ag. As you can see in the zoning image, this site is surrounded by PADs. The intention behind that, again, is that customized zoning district that's tailored to the intentional standards and evaluation as that development proposal is being formed. So now in looking at the actual development proposal here, we have the conceptual development plan. This gives you an idea of the layout and configuration that's contemplated by the site. So again, that 8 acres of commercial along the western boundary, and then the 16 acres of single-family residential. So something to note as a context item is these are detached single-family homes. So 105 detached single-family homes. The biggest difference between these and the surrounding properties being the lot size itself. So as I had referenced with the Meadows, you have that 5,000 and 6,000 square foot lot. And then Camino Lago Parcel 12 to the southwest, you have about 5,000 and 6,000. Casa del Rey operates in what I would say is a similar intensity fashion to what we're seeing here. So with Casa del Rey, as you approach the intersection, that density and intensity amplifies, and those lots get smaller. As you progress north and west of the intersection, you actually have lots that end up fanning out, similar to what you see in the Meadows development across the street. So really that's what this development is looking to do, is focus in on how can it provide those relational characteristics that provide context and still provide something meaningful to address commercial needs and intensity as you approach that signalized intersection at Lake Pleasant and Deer Valley. For the development proposal, they are looking to provide access from Deer Valley, Lake Pleasant Parkway, as well as Speckled Gecko Drive. Deer Valley being an arterial, Lake Pleasant Parkway being a parkway, and then Speckled Gecko being a collector. So the access constraints based on the proposal would be a singular right in, right out off of Deer Valley Road, as well as median improvements that would prevent those kind of interlocking lefts, if I'm saying it right for my traffic brethren, that would prevent hazards as a result of access from the south, that entry driveway that you see off of Deer Valley, in comparison to the access point on Deer Valley. That Deer Valley access point would function as shared access for both the commercial and residential components of the development. Progressing west and then north, at the intersection there, it is fully signalized currently, and then progressing north, you would have a right in, right out access point to the commercial within this proposal. This would not allow for left in or left out onto Lake Pleasant Parkway due to proximity constraints as a result of that signalized intersection, as well as the turn lane movements as you approach the southbound portion of the intersection. Continuing north to Speckled Gecko Drive and Lake Pleasant Parkway, this would provide for median improvements to accommodate a left in, so that would be southbound to eastbound access onto Speckled Gecko. It would not allow for left out, being westbound to southbound. And then full access movement at the first drive entry there onto Speckled Gecko, as well as a full access on the easternmost access point. So again, on Speckled Gecko, that westernmost access would provide for both commercial and single-family approaches into the development. As far as development form, I touched on it a little bit in the prior slide, but ultimately the western edge is where you would see that commercial component of the development. Again, trying to provide that context-sensitive increase in intensity from the existing single-family, transitioning to smaller lot, single-family residential, and then ultimately commercial as you approach that intersection. The single-family residential development within this piece looks at about 3,000 square foot lots, but ultimately they are a development form that's a little bit different than your average single family that we see throughout the city. So this is what's often called alley loaded homes, or sometimes they'll be referred to as sixplexes, just dependent on how many of them are congregated together for that shared entry point. Ultimately, the front of the home faces the front of other homes and usually is a landscaped entry to those fronts rather than fronting onto a street. Folks would then enter their garage anyway from those alley loaded portions of the residential development. From an amenity standpoint, this development looks to provide relatively dispersed amenities throughout the community. So as you can see, going east to west, the southeast portion of the site access to in that southeast corner, and then progressing north on the site, you have another centralized amenity space, followed by what is being referred to as the primary amenity area in orange. So that primary amenity area at minimum would include a community pool as well as a tot lot area. And then those blue areas that you see on the screen would provide for passive open space. So turf opportunities for, active play or someone to relax there. In the focus on the residential and commercial interplay between the two components, the applicant has proposed that kind of focal node roundabout at the center of the two pieces of the development. And the star that you see there provides for what you could say is respite opportunities and or more so meaningful connection points in between the two components of the development. So transitioning from that large blue area adjacent to the roundabout to the star would provide for a shaded connection point, and then traversing the roundabout to another shaded connection point or a landing space in the commercial area. So when evaluating any development proposals, particularly for those that are seeking to change the land use designation of a site and or the zoning of the site, our basis is always the general plan, and evaluating how a proposal meets the goals and policies within the general plan, as well as the context of the surrounding area. So as you can see, the site on the screen is currently mixed use, as we've discussed. It contemplates a possible range of 12 plus dwelling units per acre, and then mixed use neighborhood village identifies a possible range of 12 to 20 units per acre. Now, what I want to caveat that with is that's more meant to focus on the intensity and scale of the development, and really the difference between mixed use Main Street and mixed use neighborhood village focuses more so on the form rather than the actual unit count. So the idea here is by modifying mixed use Main Street to mixed use neighborhood village, it provides that opportunity for what is ultimately a lower intensity, and in this case, a lower density, so that there is that appropriate transition to the adjacent single family to the north and east, but it also provides continuity with the mixed use neighborhood village to the south. So allowing that commercial corridor along Lake Pleasant Parkway to continue to the extent possible, while also providing the single family homes that would help feed and service that commercial component. One of the elements in evaluating a change like this is access. So in the case of mixed use Main Street, again, it's those higher order kind of regional draw centers where you have an abundance of access to the larger development. In this case, access, as we had talked about, is very limited, particularly on the arterial and parkway rights of way. So again, Deer Valley Road only being that right in, right out access connection, and then Lake Pleasant Parkway also only being right in, right out. So that's the focus of the change, is to provide a scale and intensity that aligns with those adjacent developments. The overall development proposal for this site contemplates a overall density of 4.4 dwelling units per acre, which is more in line with the surrounding single family. When you're evaluating only the residential component, it is a 6.5 dwelling units per acre. When we evaluate land use, we're evaluating it based on the gross acre. And in a case like this, we're evaluating the site as a whole. So as a whole, it provides that 4.4, which is context appropriate adjacent to the existing single family that ranges in the mid to high threes. I wanted to touch a little bit more on the lot size components of this. So again, approaching that arterial parkway intersection, Casa del Rey and the Meadows both provide increases in intensity as you approach that intersection. And this further serves that intent by allowing from the Meadows component all the way to the commercial along the parkway access point there. This is a little bit deeper dive into each of those pieces. So what you see on the left is probably a poor amalgamation of what you see surrounding that arterial parkway intersection. So you can see the site in question listed on the right-hand image, but ultimately what this is intended to show is how that intensity increases as you approach that intersection of Lake Pleasant Parkway and Deer Valley. So on the left, Casa del Rey has those about 5,000 square foot homes, and then increasingly increases that intensity as you approach Lake Pleasant Parkway, ultimately landing at about 2,800 square feet for those lots that are adjacent to Lake Pleasant Parkway and Deer Valley. Now for the Meadows, which you can see on the right-hand side, you can see it fans out to where you have about 24,000 square foot lot minimums on the periphery of Pinnacle Peak Road and 91st Avenue. And then as you progress towards west towards Deer Valley and Lake Pleasant Parkway, you start seeing that increased intensity going from 24,000, 18,000, 10,000, 7,000, all the way ultimately down to that 5,000 square foot lot minimum as you surround this site on the north and eastern boundaries. So a little bit of focus here on the commercial uses within this development. As you can see, the commercial is bounded by Lake Pleasant and Deer Valley, and it utilizes C2, which is our intermediate commercial zoning district, for its base standards. Now, with that, C2 allows for quite a wide range of uses. It includes, anything that you would normally see at an arterial intersection for commercial. The caveat here is that they are seeking to limit the auto-oriented uses. So within the zoning ordinance, we have a classification of uses that are referred to as auto-related uses. And within that, it includes things like drive-through restaurants, auto repair facilities, quick lube facilities. Those sorts of things would fall under that auto-related category, that broader context. Here, they're seeking to limit, or I should say prohibit auto-oriented uses with the exception of 2 drive-through facilities on the site, one of which can be a standalone drive-through facility, and then ultimately the other one would be able to be a part of a multi-tenant building, bank, or pharmacy. The idea behind that second allowance is to provide the developer commercial flexibility and opportunity, but at the same time trying to make sure that it is not simply an auto-centric center. It provides a focus more so on connectivity with the adjacent uses and the interplay of the other tenants that would be within the building there. So ultimately, the rezoning request would be to evaluate to change the site to PAD, or planned area development. specifically with the development standards that are contemplated within this PAD. This rezoning request does align with the mixed-use neighborhood village land use designation that's proposed within the general plan amendment, and again follows the mixed-use intention that's currently contemplated on the site, simply evaluates a different form of that to provide that context relationship with the adjacent development. Again, looking for a density within the single-family piece that ultimately is substantially lower than what would be allowed within the mixed-use neighborhood village. Again, mixed-use neighborhood village allowing for 12 to 20 dwelling units per acre. This is only seeking to provide 4.4 dwelling units per acre. So to give you a little bit better perspective on how this relates to our typical single-family districts, our normal base district that we see for single-family within a planned area development in the city is R16, and they kind of model after that with slight tweaks here and there. Ultimately, when you look at this, this is seeking a difference in the lot size, but when you evaluate the other elements of the development standards, they're not that great of a deviation from what you see in R16. So with a 3,000 square foot lot, one of the critical changes and caveats that you're going to need in order to provide for a viable space on the site would be a change in lot coverage, as well as a change in the lot width and depth. So in this case, they are seeking those smaller lots, and in order to accommodate a reasonable development envelope on the site, they are seeking a 5% increase in the maximum lot coverage, and then really a decrease in the lot width there. Ultimately, side setbacks are really in alignment with what you see in other single-family PADs throughout the city. And then the real distinction here is that development form creates a need to modify the front and rear setbacks, because ultimately your vehicular approach to the site is from the rear of the home and your pedestrian entry is at the front. So the reason for what you would normally see as a front setback of 10 feet to a livable component, here they're seeking 8, and then ultimately usually what we see as a 15-foot rear setback, here they're providing 20, and that's so that driveway space can accommodate vehicles parking on the driveway without obstructing that alleyway that would provide access to the other homes. So as with any entitlement case, the city sends out notice to all property owners within a certain radius, dependent on the size of the development. In this case, because the development is under 40 acres, that radius is 600 feet and all HOAs within 1 mile. This notification went out to all property owners within the notice radius. A sign was posted on site, an ad was placed in the paper. One of the common questions that we get is school district participation in the review. We do provide information to the school district about cases that are under review, and ultimately we did not receive any comment on that. I do know that the applicant team has reached out to the school district and may have further comment on any communications that they've had with the school district. As far as neighborhood outreach, we do require a neighborhood meeting. As such, one was held on October 15th at the Sunrise Mountain Library. There were 12 residents in attendance at that meeting. Inquiries and comments in regards to the proposal focused on lot size, traffic, property values, school capacity. One comment card identifying that they were seeking only residential on the site, and another comment card identifying that they were seeking only commercial on the site. So differences of opinion there. And then ultimately, staff did receive one opposition letter, and that opposition letter was focused on largely those same criteria and focus areas. In addition to the letter of opposition, staff has received 5 letters in support of the proposal as of about 3 p.m. today, and then one letter in opposition that I referenced, and then 4 further comments that were focused on preferences of things like mixed use and the integration of uses, and or comments in regards to the commercial uses that would be allowed on the site, more so focusing on a pedestrian nature rather than an auto-centric nature of uses. So I touched a little bit on the limitations for the auto-oriented uses. I won't belabor that, but what you'll see here on the screen with the hopefully yellow dashed line, cool, I got the color right, provides for connectivity between those open spaces. And then what you'll see as that thicker orange dash line on there is a 6-foot shaded pedestrian pathway from the main focal points all the way over to that, let's call it pedestrian landing point within the commercial component of the development. So the idea there is providing maximum opportunities for those 2 uses to interact with each other and build off each other, and really focusing on the positioning of elements within the development. So in particular, as you can see, as you approach the roundabout, that open space that provides for the visual connection between the 2. As a result, staff finds that the proposed general plan amendment provides for a sensible transition in intensity from the existing single-family residential in the surrounding area to the arterial parkway intersection at Lake Pleasant and Deer Valley. It continues the intent behind the mixed-use nature that currently resides on the site, and simply looks to further refine what that development form takes in context with the surrounding area. In addition, the proposal meets the goals and policies of the general plan by facilitating infill development that'll advance several of those policies, including housing and lifestyle options in proximity to services. Item 4R, the rezoning request. Staff finds that the density is in alignment with the intent of that mixed-use neighborhood village land use category. It provides that cohesive transition that's contemplated by a mixed-use neighborhood village designation, and provides for meaningful opportunities for connection between the 2 components of the development in alignment with that intentional mixed-use focus. As a result, staff recommends approval of case 3R GPA 25-06 to Planning Commission for recommendation to City Council, as well as recommendation of approval of case Z 25-12 to Commission for recommendation to City Council, subject to conditions of approval as identified within Exhibit 1 of your packet. And with that, I can take any questions, and the applicant team is also present to address any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Gleason. Appreciate your presentation, very thorough. I am going to turn it over to my fellow commissioners for questions. Raise your hand. Yeah, go ahead, Ms. Ajia.
Hi, I got a couple questions. So reference the schools. I know recently the Peoria School District closed a couple of schools. the schools that were closed, are those students that were supposed to go to the closed schools, are they being filtered into the schools that would be affected by this neighborhood?
Chair, Commissioner Agia, I don't, sorry, I'm trying not to cough into the
you're
mic
good.
here. I don't have the specifics on where the redistricting would occur for the school district. Ultimately, the students for this site are currently bounded for Sunset Heights Elementary School and Liberty High School. I do know that those are two schools that are not contemplated as a part of that closure program.
Okay. And then also reference like public safety. So recently, like we've approved a residential development at 93rd Avenue in Happy Valley. We approved an apartment complex off of Lake Pleasant and Jomax. And now, hypothetically, say this goes forward and gets approved, that's quite a boost in the amount of residents that we're adding to Peoria. When you look at statistics nationally for officers per citizens, there should be 2 officers per every 1,000. Have you guys reached out to public safety to see if they are keeping up with the development that we're pushing in Peoria so that they're meeting those standards?
Chair, Commissioner Agia, I'm going to start, and then I might look to my left here to see if we can get some additional information. Ultimately, our police department is always evaluating whether or not they have sufficient resources to supply for the area, and trying to make sure that they keep pace with what we end up seeing in the built environment. Now, there's not necessarily an evaluation of additional officers when we reach a certain threshold that I'm aware of, but perhaps Lori can expand on that and provide some information.
Chair, Commissioner, as we go through the budgeting process on a yearly basis, we look at it from a capital improvement project standpoint. We look at it as a resource safety officer standpoint. And as we continue to develop and grow within the city, those numbers that we have on hand, as well as what we project into the future, are fed into those budgetary considerations. And so to Mr. Gleason's point, the city does take a proactive nature in looking at facilities, equipment, officers, and technology. And where we can leverage each of those, we're going to do so in a meaningful manner. But in this case, development is always first and foremost in that consideration as those requests are made.
Okay. And then I just have one more question. Just looking at the flow of traffic, like coming in on Deer Valley, it's right in, right out, so there's no access to go eastbound. And then I understand the reasoning on Lake Pleasant because of the barrier there, you can't go left. So anybody coming out of this complex that wants to go eastbound has to go to Speckled Gecko Drive. And so does that push all eastbound traffic into the Meadows neighborhoods?
Chair, Commissioner G, I'll look to Mr. Fourier to address that.
Yeah, Chair and Commission member, traffic was definitely a concern. Access to the site was definitely a concern. That's one reason in particular that the reduced intensity of the proposed land use helped address some of the traffic concerns, the access concerns. And you hit the nail on the head that was one of our main concerns, is how do vehicles travel south from this site and how do vehicles travel east from this site? So while we do anticipate some vehicles will opt to take that path from Speckled Gecko, we're assuming it would be approximately 100 during the AM and or PM peaks. But the majority of vehicles are probably going to make either a left turn at Lake Pleasant Parkway from Deer Valley, or we also anticipated the possibility of U-turns at Lake Pleasant Parkway and Deer Valley. And now we don't encourage U-turns. By state law, they are permitted. And part of the analysis was a sight distance and turning analysis to ensure that a typical vehicle could execute a U-turn and have adequate sight distance to do so. Once again, we don't encourage the U-turns, but no, it's a possibility, it's a probability. People will make that movement. So a provision for that movement was a consideration as well. So again, it's not an optimal site, but the reduced in intensity did at least help address some of those concerns.
Thank you, Commissioner Gia.
Yeah.
Any more questions?
Yeah, also continued for Mr. Ford. Is there any, help me understand the connectivity, vehicular connectivity between the commercial and the residential. Is it all being forced out the back end on the commercial side
Sure.
into that
Chair-
roundabout?
Chair and Commission member, the access, we tried to maximize the access that was available. There is free interaction between the commercial and the residential portions of the development. And you can see there are two east-west local road equivalents serving the residential development. There's no physical separation between those two uses, so we're anticipating the two access locations directly onto Speckled Gecko. And again, there's there's free interaction between these two uses, unless I'm mistaken as far as
It's
gated.
the residential is not gated off, correct? It's open.
Chair, Commissioner Fighter, that's correct. It is not a gated residential piece.
Thank you. Can you explain to me the thought process and why we couldn't? I feel like this commercial is going to be hampered by just two right-in, right-outs on the major arterials. What consideration was done? Maybe could that Deer Valley access point be moved further east so they can create a full movement? Or was that considered?
Chairman and Commission Member Fighter, that was actually staff's initial recommendation for the site, was to try to establish full access in alignment with the Walmart back of house access to the east. There were a number of challenges to that site. Part of it had to do with coordination with Walmart. Part of it had to do with the existing access really is not ideally suited to that Walmart access and development opportunities on the land itself. So ultimately, that effort was abandoned in favor of the right-in, right-out. The primary concern at that point from staff is the enforcement of the right-in, right-out access, and we had to balance that with an existing entitled full access for the Walmart driveway to the south. So the median that is going to be part of this project would extend to the Walmart driveway, but couldn't extend beyond the Walmart driveway because we would end up limiting access at that point with the previously entitled full access.
Is the Meadows gated? No, it's open also?
Chair, Commissioner Fighter, all portions of the Meadows are open. There is no gated portion in the Meadows.
Reading the proposed conditions of approval in Exhibit 1, am I missing, there was some limitations on what can be done from a commercial standpoint? I don't see those in here unless I'm missing them.
Chair, Commissioner Fighter, the focus for staff is always ensuring that the limitations, at least to the extent possible, are housed within the entitlement document. So in this case, the PAD. The use limitations that you're referencing are housed within the use portion of the PAD.
Okay. Okay, I'm good, thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Fighter. Commissioner Cottrell?
Thank you, Chair. I have 37 questions, if that's, and this is exactly the slide I want to start with. So question one, you have minimum lot width of 50, minimum lot depth of 100. How do we get to a minimum lot area of 2,900? It looks like they're all 5,000. Is there some oddities going on here?
Chair, Commissioner Cottrell, that is a typo on the slide. The minimum lot width should be 30, minimum lot depth should be 97. I apologize.
Okay.
Could you repeat that, please?
Certainly. Chair, Commissioner Cottrell, there's a typo on the PowerPoint. The actual lot width is 30, and the lot depth is 97.
Thank you.
Yep, my apologies.
Sorry. And then regarding the the commercial, and I appreciate the use restrictions, that's great. The question is, when those commercial projects come in, what is the procedure for them from the applicant? Does each one of those come in front of P&Z? Is it open for public comment, or is there some uses that would be allowed by right that they could do administratively without that?
Sure. Chair, Commissioner Cottrell, so the uses would be in alignment with C2 except what he provided. PAD, they did carve out that allowance for drive-through uses, one being that standalone component and the other being a part of the multi-tenant bank or pharmacy. So there wouldn't be a conditional use permit that would be required for those uses that are spelled out as allowed by right. But if there are other uses within C2 that would require a conditional use permit, in that case, it would come back before commission. In the instance of uses that are permitted by right, if it is a vacant site, they would simply need to come in for a site plan, which is an administrative review where staff is evaluating whether or not the proposal complies with all city regulations.
Okay. And when you indicate that you were trying to not have this be an auto-centric, right? So I'm assuming you're trying to push it more pedestrian-friendly with a higher density across from the Walmart, obviously. And would that be part, and that's part of my question. I want some way to have that public opinion to say, yes, this would be a pedestrian-friendly commercial and not, two fast food joints or one fast food and a Starbucks at the end and, all the traditional stuff that's auto-centric anyway.
Sure. Chair, Commissioner Cottrell, so one of the things that staff had worked with the applicant on in order to try and address that focus and that intent behind the land use is where you see those pedestrian access points along Deer Valley. For the, let's see, Lake Pleasant and Deer Valley, if you're going a little bit east of that along Deer Valley Road, you see a star there. That's indicated as a pedestrian access point. The focus of that is trying to get that pedestrian access point as close as possible to Lake Pleasant Parkway. So functionally, as a pedestrian, you're going to be funneled to that crosswalk intersection. So how can we get the pedestrian into the commercial development as quickly as possible? In this case, along Lake Pleasant Parkway, there's a decently sized drainage area. So where you see the yellow that bounds outside of the property line, that is surrounding that drainage channel. So it made it difficult to try and put a pedestrian connection right at that corner. So we moved it a little bit east with the idea that we're looking to push those buildings to the corner and kind of frame that corner. And then this would provide a pedestrian access point right as you approach the access to that individual business there. Similarly with the landing spot in the commercial area, trying to provide those centralized nodes and kind of feeder points so that those uses interact with each other. And then where you see the star on the southeast corner of the development, that would be an access point, a pedestrian access point into the development, because ultimately that's the first spot that we can get folks off of the arterial roadway and into the more neighborhood aspect of the development.
Was there any discussion on making a pedestrian crossing, even if it's just pedestrian only, across there to allow people to walk over to Walmart, basically?
As in across Deer Valley Road? There wasn't any evaluation for pedestrian crossing other than the crosswalk. From a traffic safety standpoint, I would defer to Mr. Foray as far as the viability of a pedestrian, something like a hawk or something along those lines that would provide pedestrian access across. But I know that there is one further east on Deer Valley that had some circumstances surrounding it. I don't know if Brandon can expand on that.
Sure, Commission Member and Commissioner Cottrell. Primarily when we were looking at the full access option earlier in discussions. Creating an access definitely would draw a lot more pedestrian focus and attention to that particular location, especially lining up with the access to the Walmart. However, without the full access at that location, the anticipated demand for a crossing at that location certainly is reduced significantly. However, it does not mean that it's not a location that we couldn't continue to monitor after construction. If we're getting reports of a significant number of pedestrian crossings at a location that's not at the signal on an arterial in particular, it's something we would look at and evaluate with our own criteria for other crossing considerations. But generally speaking, we tend not to install pedestrian crossings at uncontrolled locations on arterial streets and try to focus pedestrians to signalized crossings.
If you can see my chain of questioning is, it would be, this type of product seems to be an emphasis on those pedestrian, not the auto, which is a good thing. I would support that, and I would want to make sure that everything is done to try and push that as much as possible. Last question, and this is more of just a comment. I know you must have read my mind, because I heard you say 4.4 dwelling units per acre, and I know what you said is gross, but I don't think that's a fair comparison, since we know that this big old empty space on the left-hand side of this is not going to be left empty. So it should be noted it's 6 acres, dwelling units per acre for the residential piece. It's compared to the 4 to 5 or whatever that's east of there.
Yep, Chair, Commissioner Cottrell, that's correct. Approximately 6.5 dwelling units per acre when you're evaluating the residential component by itself.
Right.
Yep.
Right. Okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Cottrell. Commissioner, please.
Thank you, Chair. I think I actually may wait until the applicant is present, correct? Okay, I do have one point of clarification before the applicant comes up. I may wait to hold questioning, but just to confirm, and this may be for our city traffic engineer, right now, all I'm seeing is 2 pedestrian access points to the development, right? It's the stars, am I correct?
So, Chair, Commissioner Waitman Powell, those are the specific pedestrian access points onto the south side there. There would still be pedestrian access, so you can see the yellow dashed line that's on the northern, eastern, and southern perimeters there, or I'm sorry, western perimeter. So that would allow for pedestrian access from Speckled Gecko at several points, from Lake Pleasant Parkway at those 2 locations, and then several points onto from Deer Valley Road. Ultimately, what those stars are indicating is, at minimum, that's where those pedestrian access points should be focused, because we wanted to make sure to provide direct connectivity as close as possible to the intersection for pedestrians into the commercial. And then we wanted a way for folks to get off of that arterial roadway at the earliest point into the residential development. So those stars can be thought of as minimum criteria that are being established there.
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Gleason. Yeah, because that was a point of my concern, and thank you for elaborating on that, because they're both on one side, right, of the development. And so thinking about traffic, thinking it being close to the interstate, and just safety, I will hold the rest of my questions for the applicant to come, because I do see when we're looking at the minimum PAD standards that they did effectively really use the space and thought about how that would come into play. So I'll hold my questions. They may answer some. We'll wait for them to come up. If no, other commissioners.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any more comments or questions? I don't mind, again, if I'm in the right process here, I don't mind calling up the applicant to answer questions. I don't necessarily think that we need a presentation from the applicant, but definitely if you have questions, or if anybody has questions for the applicant, if the applicant can come up. And I think although I know your name already, I'm going to ask you to state your name and address for the record.
Chair, before we do, could you open up the...
So I open up the public hearing?
Yes, please.
Yeah, give me just a second here. So, okay. I now open up the public hearing.
Hello, Vice Chair Gaynor, members of the commission. Thank you for having us tonight. I'm proud to represent the applicant. I'm Tom Galvin with Rose Law Group, 714 East Stetson Drive, and I just want to say an appreciation for staff of all of the work they've been able to do with us over the last few months. We really appreciate it. And as you can see tonight, they provided a very fulsome presentation. Also want to commend you for the very good questions that you asked. And yes, indeed, a lot of these questions would have been answered in our presentation. We are happy to further discussion. We do have a presentation if you would like, but I would like to address what I would call the horizontal mixed-use aspect of this project. Right now, as of right, you can build over 200 residential homes. The proposal here is for 105, but also it is such a large property, about 24 gross acres, that is designated entirely for commercial, which would be a very car-centric project and a very car-intensive use. So I think the questions drawn out tonight by the commission members really address that, and I think we have a really good solution here in terms of incorporating quite a bit of commercial, but not too much. In fact, it's not overly intensive, but at the same time, a residential community that is not only more pedestrian friendly, but also incorporates the entire parcel itself, in which you're able to walk around the entire current property right there, as you see, which is at a very unique and important intersection. But also keep in mind the commercial property directly to the south, and as you heard earlier from staff, you certainly don't want to have an entrance facing the back of a Walmart. So I heard you say you don't want to hear a presentation. We're happy to do
Mr.
it.
Galvin, I'll tell you
We're
what,
happy to answer
can
any
you do it
questions.
in 5 minutes?
I can do it in 5 minutes.
Okay, so
if that's okay.
Why don't I give you 5 minutes?
Okay.
Christy will set the timer.
Okay.
And that way we have a chance to hear your point of view, and then we'll ask.
And perhaps this will also answer any questions that folks might
Yeah,
have.
absolutely.
And then also the applicant's here to answer any technical questions.
Great, thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you,
Mr.
appreciate it.
Galvin. Yes.
Okay, so as you can see here, obviously, you know this is an aerial of the project, what we're addressing tonight. This is the site directly below. You can see how big and intensive that commercial project is. And so this is why we're trying to find a very creative solution, because as you know, commercial markets these days are very challenging, but at the same time, we want to make sure that we're doing right by the city. This was a state land department site that was won at auction by Lennar, the applicant. It's surrounded on 3 sides by single-family homes already, and it's located directly on Lake Pleasant Parkway. But there are 42 acres of commercial immediately south, and as you know in your packet, we do have a letter of support from that property to the south. As I said earlier, 24 gross acres. As of right, you would be able to do 18.8 net acres of commercial. So if someone else wanted to do that right now, that would be a very huge impact on the city. So right now, under the existing general plan for land use, it's mixed use Main Street, as you heard earlier from staff. This would mean residential in excess of 12 to 20 dwelling units an acre. And Commission Member Cottrell, I think, did a really good job of contrasting that. So you could have right now commercial with apartments above, but frankly, this site cannot support 24 acres of commercial. So the proposal before you tonight is Neighborhood Village, as you heard earlier, suburban residential, which allows for 5 to 12 dwelling units an acre. It's an important transition abutting adjacent neighborhoods, which is very key. And I want you to know that we have worked diligently with the neighbors and with the community. As you saw earlier tonight in the presentation, 10 letters, 9 of them were either supportive or advocating for mixed use, which is what this project is. Only 1 in opposition. That is a very good ratio. And the commercial itself is conveniently accessible by walking or biking. And then as you can see here, the 105 homes, that is the plan for the design of the homes. The commercial aspect to the west, which would be between 15 and 30,000 square feet, that's not exactly set in stone, but it's conceptual, but it gives you a good idea of the thought and deliberative care put into this. And as you can see at the very top of our slide, it's a horizontal mixed use with a cohesive design. Also, we have had very good substantive conversations with Councilman Edwards. He has provided a lot of feedback into this, and what you see here today is basically based on his feedback. He did not want to see a gas station. He did not want to see a car wash. He asked for max 1 freestanding drive-through and max 1 drive-through for multi-tenant building, and not only did we listen to him on that, but we listened to the other neighbors who have sent you emails or have been well aware of this as well. So we incorporated all of the feedback. And then another commission member said that there's some care put into here regarding open spaces and places for people to sit and gather and enjoy this beautiful location, and that's exactly what the plan would have. And then pedestrian connectivity. This is amazing. This is absolutely incredible. All these different colors you see highlighted here, those are for sidewalks, either a primary pedestrian path, a secondary path, and other pedestrian paths, but anywhere you want to walk along, you can definitely access it as a pedestrian. Significant access in and out of sight. You've heard staff do a very good job of answering those questions earlier. Those 2 stars also show the pedestrian access points. And then significant buffers on all sides. So on Deer Valley Road, Lake Pleasant Parkway, Speckled Gecko Drive, absolutely this is buffers on all sides for the community, but most importantly, the Greenbelt will be abutting that on the east as well. And then Lennar and Barclay, their partner, just do world-class projects, and they have done amazing projects, including Acacia, what everyone here in Peoria is well aware of, and this is the type of project that you're going to be seeing at that location if this project is ultimately successful and approved. Barclay Group, who they're going to be working with on the commercial side, does nothing but exquisite projects. And then as you can see here, we have just a good summary of this proposal. A perfect location for horizontal mixed use, the right size for commercial, a high demand housing product, but it's not intensive, pedestrian connectivity throughout, which is really carefully thought out and planned through local reputable industry leaders. And we're proud to have these support letters. Thank you very much, Mr. Gaynor.
Thank you, Mr. Galvin. It's a pleasure to see you.
Likewise.
Do we have any questions for Mr. Galvin? Go ahead. Did he answer your questions, Commissioner?
I don't have any questions. I do want to mention that I did enjoy reading these support letters, and often we get letters that are not so much in support. So I do want to commend you for that community engagement and encouraging residents to express their support for this project. So
Vice
thank
Chair
you.
Gaynor and Commissioner, thank you for highlighting that. It is very important for Lennar and Barclay to incorporate and listen to the feedback from neighbors and constituents. And so we're very proud to have that support because this really was a productive two-way process.
Thank you, sir. Any more questions for the applicant? Go ahead, Mr. Cottrell.
One quick question. Thank you very much. We've been talking about that lot size, 2,900 minimum average. What's the actual house size that you're anticipating on those?
Oh, you got me there. I'm going to ask Mr. Warner to come up here to address that. If you can introduce yourself.
Name and address for the record.
Yeah, Matthew Warner with Lennar, 1665 Alameda Drive, Tempe, Arizona. The home sizes are going to be in the 1,600 to just under 2,200 square foot range. It's a two-story product, as I talked about, an alley load, and it has a more of a side yard design, so there is a private fenced and gated space for each home.
Beautiful. That was my second question, was the fencing, so thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Any more questions? Go ahead.
Last one was parking, and I see the garage, I'm assuming a two-car garage. Is
right.
there space outside for a third car? Are you anticipating parallel parking within those alleys? It seems pretty tight.
Yeah,
I'm assuming it's going to be busy in there.
Thank you once again, Matt Warner with Lennar Homes.
I see the visitor, yeah.
Yes, so each home has 4 parking spaces, 2 full-size driveway spaces, 20-foot minimum,
Excellent.
and then 2-car garage. And then there's numerous parking spaces throughout the community, especially around the different amenities.
So two inside and the 2 outside.
Correct, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
again.
Appreciate your consideration.
Okay, as the public meeting is open right now, I'd like to now call, give me just a second. So we have one, and help me out here, Christy, we have one person that would like to speak, Christian Williams, and he wants to speak on cases 3 and 4. Mr. Williams, you're here? Okay. Sir, we're going to give you, is 3 minutes okay for you? Okay, so we'll give you 3 minutes. State your name and address for the record, please, and appreciate your time. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Christian Williams. I live 600 feet west of here. Lived in Peoria 30 years and in Camino Lago since 2011. Also serve as the HOA president on the HOA to the west and the sub-association to the west. I want to express my support for this proposed general plan amendment and rezoning for the shops in the Camino Lago. While I was initially hesitant about the city changing the general plan designation from mixed-use Main Street to mixed-use neighborhood village, that concern was tied to the original zoning concept. My neighbors and I were not interested in another corner dominated by multiple drive-throughs, car washes, and gas stations, especially when we already have a car wash, gas station, and auto repair shop directly across the street on the south side. So duplicating those uses did not create a vibrant or distinctive gateway for Camino Lago. I appreciate that the applicant actually listened to us in the community and made significant changes to the proposal, limiting it to one standalone drive-through, total of two, one being an end cap, and restricting the automotive uses. And this creates space for restaurants, retail, and services that our area currently lacks. One of my neighbors wants an Irish pub, just in case anyone was listening. I also support the residential component. Camino Lago already offers a range of housing from half-acre lots at Pinnacle Peak, traditional houses in the middle, and cluster products on the west side of the street, but we don't have any alley-loaded single-family homes for smaller households, working professionals, or residents seeking a lock-and-leave lifestyle. Product is in demand, yet it currently is unavailable for sale in North Peoria. Adding it here expands home ownership opportunities and keeps residents from having to look in Gilbert, Chandler, or Scottsdale for that kind of housing, especially with all the jobs going up on 303. And the inclusion of the amenities such as the pool further supports the high quality vision for this development. My buddy that lives in Meadows is appreciative that this will have a pool so they won't try to jump his pool. I'm also grateful for the applicant's attention to connectivity, open space, and the architectural compatibility with Camino Lago, as well as their commitment to carrying forward the Camino Lago identity and the naming. Given the concessions that they've made, as we've been emailing them, I would ask that y'all recommend approval of this to the council. And again, I'm excited that this is a known thing for this lot versus it staying vacant and them coming back with something worse. So appreciate what they're showing here, and I want high quality development in Camino Lago. So with that, hope that you'll vote yes on 3R and 4R.
Thank you. Don't walk away yet, sir. Mr. Williams, thank you very much. I'm going to turn it to the commissioners if I have any questions for Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Chair. I do not have any questions, but I want to thank Mr. Williams because, I mean, it means a lot, him coming here as the HOA president and really standing here in support means there has been active communication and collaborative leadership amongst the HOA, amongst the applicant, and those are the things that me as a commissioner and what I've seen over these 6 years of serving, that's what I want to see. If you want to do something right, that's how you work to get a quality project. So thank you so much coming here on behalf of your HOA and speaking up and letting us know that you are in support. That does mean a lot. Thank you, Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, no more speaker forums, so I get to close the public hearing. And now I'm going to hope for a motion from our commissioners.
Mr. Vice Chair, I just have a couple of comments. I'm in support of this project. I think our desperate need for diversity in housing is being addressed here. I will say my only concern is that this area is starved for good retail. My concern is putting the limitations on the retail developer. I think the right-in, right-outs are very limiting to some people accessing this retail component. I would just like to be open-minded if they're struggling with leasing efforts that we be willing to reevaluate that in the future, as long as safety concerns are met. I'm not looking to make any changes to it, but I just want to be supportive of the development of the retail piece of it, because we are starved for good retail up there. So I appreciate the retail folks for getting to work on our site. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Fighter. Does that
I will continue that into my motion. I will do two motions as required. First motion will be, I would like to make a motion to approve item 3R, minor general plan amendment, the shops and the Cove, Lake Pleasant Parkway, and Deer Valley GPA 25-06 for approval recommendation to City Council.
Thank you.
As conditioned.
I second that.
Okay. I have a motion by Commissioner Fighter, a second by Commissioner Igia. All those in favor, please press the little button. Okay, motion carries. Thank you, Commissioner Fider?
I will now make a motion to recommend approval to City Council for the rezoning the shops in the Cove at Lake Pleasant Parkway and Deer Valley Road, Z25-12.
Chair, Commissioner Fider, if I can just make a request on that motion, if we can add subject to the conditions. in
Subject to the
Exhibit 1.
conditions. Thank you.
Now I'll second.
Okay.
Pardon my
Thank you.
my shortfall there.
We have a motion by Commissioner Fider, a second by Commissioner Hutchinson. All those in favor or opposed, please press the button. Thank you. Motion carries. Okay, thank you for everyone that spoke on this case. And now we are going to move on to the code amendment, 5R. Are we on the right spot here? Is it going to be Mr. Cook? Okay. So go ahead, sir. Staff, please present.
Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. My name is Eric Cook. I will be presenting proposed text amendment TA 2503, which is relevant to Chapter 21, the zoning code, specifically relating to animal shelters. So taking a look at our request, it is for it's an applicant-initiated code amendment, and our applicant is Ms. Gina Benner, who is representing Barb's Dog Rescue. The request is to allow for animal shelters to be a permitted use within the intermediate commercial C2 zoning district, specific and limited by special limitations and restrictions. So the sections that would be affected by this change would be Section 21503, the land use matrix, and 21505, limitations on uses. Looking at the code as it currently sits, the use of animal rescue is defined as an animal shelter, so they are synonymous within the code. Currently, the use is conditionally allowed within the general commercial C4 district and is also allowed within most industrial zoning districts. Looking at the analysis of the request, there are several animal-related businesses currently allowed to operate within the C2 zoning district. These existing businesses are either principally permitted by right or are permitted conditionally. As we are aware, the vast majority of these uses have operated without any major issues or concerns, and these uses are typically subject to operational limitations and restrictions that are similar in nature regardless of the very specific use they are applied to. Looking at some of those comparable uses that are currently allowed within the C2 zoning district, we have animal daycares, kennels, pet shops, and vet clinics. It is important and key to note that pet shops, which are principally permitted within the district, have several ancillary uses that are equivalent to those provided by animal rescues or animal shelters. So as we discussed, limitations on use, currently the zoning ordinance identifies special limitations on the use for boarding kennels, but however, it does not have any limitations on use listed for animal shelters. Seeing that boarding kennels and animal shelters are very akin in use, staff concurs that it is appropriate to have similar limitations on use applied to both uses. When we look at some of those operational considerations and limitations, they include limiting those animals used at the facility to be limited to household animals, a prohibition on commercial breeding of animals. There are special limitations on outdoor activities out of respect for neighboring properties, which would require staff oversight and supervision at all times while animals are outdoors. Prohibition on outdoor kenneling. And then there's also special requirements related to addressing noises and potential nuisance odors. So So moving on to the outreach and findings, outreach methods included posting the draft language on the website for public to view, legal noticing, which included a 1/8 legal ad in the newspaper, and a public meeting, which we are having here today, and we also had a study session regarding the matter. So it was properly noticed pursuant to the zoning ordinance. As of today, we have not had any submissions of support or opposition for this case. Our key findings are that similarly related animal uses were previously found to be appropriate within the intermediate commercial C2 zoning district, with special limitations applied to those uses. With animal shelters being akin to those very uses, we would find it to be also appropriate to allow the animal shelters to operate within the C2 zoning district with special limitations on use to ensure safe, healthy, and responsible operation. As we come to the close of my presentation, I will close with our recommendation for action. Staff does recommend approval of case TA 2503 to the City Council as shown in Exhibit A. At this time, I'd be happy to address any questions or concerns you may have, Chair or Commissioners.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. Do we have any questions from the commissioners? I think we do.
I have a couple.
Yeah, go ahead, Commissioner Vider.
Mr. Cook, where is Barb's Animal Rescue located?
But it is an existing location that has previously had similar animal uses there in the past.
Chair, Commission, let me give a little bit more clarity on that one. Barb's is looking to go within a former daycare facility along Thunderbird near 79th Avenue.
And is this something that historically would just need a use permit?
Chair, Commission, as Mr. Cook noted, animal shelters are treated differently right now within the code, and the allowance would be within a C4, within a conditional use permit, and within industrial uses. The current location being sought is within a C2 because it's along an arterial, so they would be prohibited at the location that they're seeking to go into, hence the text amendment. In the reasoning for the request, as Mr. Cook noted, there's a number of analogous uses that are already in C2. So we do see a lot of these animal services there. Given the right operational limitations and such, we believe this would be a good operator within that area under the conditions and the operations in the code.
I got it. So they'd either have to rezone or do a code amendment. Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Vider. Any more questions? Okay. You sure? Okay, with that, I'm going to open the public hearing and ask if there are any speakers or don't have anything. Oh, this is for case 7. Okay. I get to close it now? Okay. So with that, I'd like to close the public hearing. And apparently I can ask for a motion. I apologize, I'm not used to having to follow exact instructions.
All right.
So this is great.
To be
Hard make a mistake.
consistent for the evening,
Yes.
I will make a motion to approve item 5R, the code amendment, chapter 21 zoning regarding animal shelters, TA 25-03.
I second. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Vider, a second by Commissioner Whitman Powell. Please vote. Okay, thank you. This motion passes. Thank you again. On to the next case, 6R, Code Amendment, Chapter 21, Code Modernization, TA 26-1. Who will be speaking? Ms. Deaver.
I have the pleasure this evening, Chair, members of the commission. So I'm back before you on this particular item. Give me a moment while I advance my information here. All right, the request in front of you is a code amendment for a number of items, as you see on the screen. Primarily, it is to modernize a few sections, but these are meaningful changes in particular. We do have some clarification of provisions in 100. We do try to get all of the definitions in one place as they should be within section 200. That means we are going into 500 and 600 to make that change as well. We'll be touching on more of the non-residential section as we get further in the conversation. In addition, we are also within the sign code going in and aligning the political sign duration in accordance with state statutes. And then finally, we're just going to clarify for our codifier what we would like the signage regulations to be based on previously adopted code. So with that, you see the sections on the screen. We got a number of them, but we'll fly through this pretty quickly. Highlights for 21-100, it's a reformatting of the notification table. As we talked about earlier, if we are not able to have season planners understand what is required for notification in our own table, then it's time to look and make modifications to that table so it's easier to read. So it is color-coded, it is streamlined, it is alphabetical, should be much easier to read. Second highlight on that one is, as we are going through our code amendments, our current policy is to publish the draft code onto the city's website in advance of our public meetings. We are just formally adopting that within this code change. And then finally, we're unifying the neighborhood meeting procedures for rezoning and conditional use permit cases. We got a little wordy and it's inconsistent, so we're tying it together and making it the same. We did talk about, consolidation of the definitions. They are color-coded. We didn't get crazy with the crayons for a reason. They actually do mean something. I did see that, look, Commissioner. Thank you. Appreciate that. So the blue means they are new and modified. The green means they've moved from another location. The red means they are struck through because we've either addressed it accordingly in a different manner or they're no longer applicable. In particular, we've grouped like definitions together for ease of use. And then finally, we have three definitions in particular: cosmetic tattooing, which is for permanent makeup, or for, yes, we'll just go with that, for permanent makeup effectively, which is different than traditional tattooing. And then, as we discussed, Commissioner Control, we have modified the general retail definition to say such as, but not limited to, a whole list of general retail uses so that we are able to make huge consolidations in that table that I'll talk about next. And then automotive and vehicle repair uses, again, we're generalizing this between minor and major. That allows us to simplify the table, which we'll talk about next. The largest impact is in 21-500. It is a restructuring of one of our most used tables. Again, we're highlighting and trying to make it easier to read for folks. You'll see a lot of the strikeouts, a lot of the blue in there. That's simply a consolidation of uses. So as the current table spans many pages and is unwieldy, this at the end will be very condensed and user-friendly. We are also adding a table for use-specific standards for those consultants or folks that may not be familiar with codes. It gives them basically the path to go look for limitations and for use restrictions. So it plays connect the dots. What can I do with the use? What's the zoning district? Okay, what's my regulations? So it plays connect the dots there. So finally, we get into the operational performance measures in the back. They've been rearranged, they're grouped. We've added some new information where possible. And I do want to touch on the two items that we addressed at the study session. First one being service stations and car washes. When we presented this item to commission last time, what we identified is we have previously heard three gas stations at an intersection is too much. So what the proposal is max 2 of these stations at arterial, and arterial parkway intersections, and then max 1 arterial and collector intersections. So like the QT at Rio Vista in that case. We are maintaining the minimum 500-foot separation between stations on the same side. We believe this will address comments that we've heard over time and on an ongoing basis to reduce the saturation of these at the corner. I'll pause right here. Commission was still good? Okay. Going forward, this was the larger topic of the evening during the last conversation. We are making changes to the regulations for car washes. We were trying to address ongoing concerns with oversaturation and proliferation. Commission did ask staff to do research on the impact of the proposed regulations in primarily 2 areas. And so we did provide the results of that analysis within the staff report, but we'll go into each of those in this conversation. The first question was how many facilities are located less than a mile from another car wash? The second question was how many commercial centers less than 25 acres have more than 2 automotive uses, of which 1 is a car wash. So in relation to the first question, we did find 24 facilities within and immediately adjacent the city limits. And by immediate, I mean like directly across the street or very shortly thereafter. Of those 24, less than 30% or 7 would be able to meet that separation requirement of 1 mile. When you look at the 17 that did not meet the separation, you had more than 2 car washes located a mile away from them. So not 1, but 2. And in particular, there is concentration within the Acacia and the Palo Verde districts with 7 each. The closest spacing was along T-Bird from 79th to 91st, with 4 facilities less than a half a mile apart. What I will also note is it was 4 blocks short of being 6 total. There are 2 additional car wash facilities at 67th and T-Bird, 1 on the hard corner of the southeast corner, and if you look further down past the QT there, there's another on the 67th side a little further down, but you could argue that it would be a part of that commercial complex. Chair, Commissioner would like to ask a question?
Can I ask one question?
Go ahead, Commissioner, sorry.
And of these car washes that you're counting, are they all of the type that we're seeing on screen, automated, larger scale, or are they some of them smaller, the hand-washed ones or things like that?
Chair, Commission, great question. It covered all types of car washes, whether they be the smaller tunnel that would be akin to a service station with a combination, to the larger facilities that you see, including some of that were former full-service stations that have been converted to self-service stations as well. So anything in existence at the time, that's when the inventory was counted. So because of our findings, we did a little bit further deeper dive, if you will. When we look at inventory, only a few of car washes have gone out of business, and it's primarily those automated tunnels co-located with service stations that we've seen them. And in fact, as I noted, excuse me, just now, the full-service stations have been converted by and large to the self-service model because it requires minimal staffing and it is more popular, if you will. And everything that we currently see in process is self-service. So we do see that trend expected to continue. So for those key points, if the regulatory environment stayed status quo, we believe that the continuing saturation at this rate would occur without some mitigation measures. And as such, we believe the spacing requirement as proposed would be appropriate to address these measures. So going forward, the second question proposed by Commission was, when we're looking at commercial centers, in particular under 25 acres, do we have a saturation of automotive uses and car washes together? We looked at all centers, but in particular, the analysis focused on those that were C2 zoned and those that are PAD with underlying C2 zoning. It would be impacted by what we were proposing. What I can state is no centers under that 25-acre size threshold had 2 auto uses and car wash together, so none. When we went further and looking, the smaller centers had 1 auto use and 1 standalone car wash. That was the primary thing that we saw. Others had 2 auto uses, no car wash. And in limited instances, it was just the service station combined with the car wash at the corner. And in particular, when they are less than 10 acres in size, it was only 1 automotive use. So along those lines, what we're finding is we do not have the oversaturation of auto uses in those commercial centers as we were anticipating. Looking further out, Auto District on Bell Road is different because it is zoned and regulated differently. There are 2 car washes adjacent to multiple auto uses, but that is what it is specifically zoned for. It's a PAD, it's greater than 25 acres in size, and it is regulated and specifically intends for automotive uses to be combined together. So that is the anomaly out of the inventory, if you will. So based on these findings, we believe the proposal to regulate car washes and auto uses in the C2 would have no tangible impact on the existing centers today. So we're not recommending any further mitigation beyond that 1 mile spacing to address the oversaturation. So what does that mean? You had seen these last go around at the study session. We are striking what you see in red on the screen. So we'll keep the 1 mile separation. It has all of the good neighbor requirements with the building and equipment, minimum 200 feet from residential, the sound attenuation, hours of operation. We believe this is an appropriate measure to address ongoing concerns with oversaturation. When we propose, oh, the clicker is acting up. All right. When we propose spacing limitations, the question has come up with Commission, the what ifs. What if there is a site that is appropriate? Are there avenues that the developer can use in order to have a car wash at the location? And the answer is yes. There's already 3 existing avenues that a developer can approach the city in order to make a car wash happen if it is the appropriate location. Number 1, we can see it as a rezone to a PAD, single use. Normally it's not single use. It's a modification of an existing PAD, and then they adjust the land use matrix to allow that to occur. They can also request a spacing variance, and that has been granted in the past. So if there's intervening conditions, wash, contextually it's appropriate, it makes sense, there's that avenue as well. So all 3 of these options are in the code today, they remain in the code, and they are options going forward. So should there be a concern going forward, does a car wash make sense at this location? Yeah, there is a remedy in place in order to allow that. Going forward, we have 2 last sections. These are real quick. In 21-600, we moved a lot of definitions, but we kept the landform types and characters in there. And then 21-700, we aligned the political sign duration to state statutes. And again, we're telling our codifier, yes, please make these changes. So with that, we've posted the code on the website. We've done the legal noticing. We've had a couple meetings. It's been properly noticed in accordance with the zoning ordinance. We did receive one letter of opposition today that is in your packet. How it would classify that is concern with a prior text amendment associated with middle housing that was adopted by the city last year. None of the items that were adopted in that text amendment are a part of this code amendment. So there are no changes being made to what council has previously approved associated with middle housing. So with that, we believe that the modifications are in keeping with the adopted general plan requirements, which do require regular review, maintenance, and update of the city's policies and regulatory documents to maintain ease of use, efficiency, and effectiveness. Our recommendation would be for approval of this item to council as shown in Exhibit A. I will take additional questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Deaver. Okay, I'm going to open it up now for commissioner questions. Go ahead, Commissioner Gia.
I actually sat down and read most of it. But I don't have a question. I just have a comment that I just found a typo. So in section 21-162 on the appeal of zoning, number 2, applications to appear a zoning administrators, there's a Z instead of an A.
Thank you. We will catch it and make that change.
Yeah, that's all I have.
That's not even correct in British. Go ahead, Mr. Cottrell.
Thank you, Ms. Deaver. And my concern from the beginning on the car washes was too broad of a definition of what a car wash would be. You know, the issue that we're seeing is valid. It's the big ones with all the activity and the automation in the tunnel. My concern was with the small one-off guy that somebody says, all right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to hand wash cars in the back, and he gets caught up in the same thing. And as long as we do have an option in the code where that person comes in for some application, it's something we haven't thought of before, he has a way to do that without rezoning the entire thing, a use permit of some kind, I think that'd be appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Cottrell. Again, any more questions from Commission? Okay, with that, I'd like to open the public hearing. I will note the letter in opposition, but I don't have any request cards, so now I will close the public meeting and ask for a motion or additional comments from the commission.
I'll motion to approve 6R TA 26-01.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Regia, a second by Commissioner Cottrell. Please vote. Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, we're on 7R, Project Update, Peoria Innovation Corps, and Lake Pleasant and Lone Mountain Parkway.
Great. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. I think before I start, I do want to thank Lori on the prior item. It was really a big lift. We started out with a couple of house cleaning amendments. She saw the need to restructure, particularly our notification procedures and the layout. And it was a big effort, and it's going to function a lot better. So just thank you for that, Lori. All right, tonight, this is purpose of 7R, this is a update on the entitlement work that we've been conducting on what's known as the Peoria Innovation Corps, or the PIC. Oops, I think I went too far here. It's not just me. I missing a slide here? All right, we'll adjust from there then. Okay, so the Peoria Innovation Core, what you see on the screen here is the area in question. So it's approximately 7,340 acres, 11 and a half square miles. So just to relate that, that is about the size of Estancia, just a little bit larger than Estancia. And so the land generally is all located east of the Agua Fria River. It is bounded on the south by existing communities of Pleasant Valley and West Wing, on the north side by State Route 74, and on the east by Wash and the city of Phoenix. So when we started out in this effort, this was all state land, but since that time we have, of course, we are working on infrastructure projects in what we call Core 2, or north of the 303. And so in that effort, we've had to engage the Roman Catholic Diocese, and we've had discussions with them, and we collectively decided that it was in all of our interests to include them within the application, whether they decide to move forward with a religious facility or pursue another avenue. It makes sense to include in the application. And also with Amcor, as you all drive out there, you see there's a lot of work with the Amcor development right now. We recently patented that property and sold it. They have closed on that property, so they are a property owner within that area as well. So what this is this is a effort to do the master plan the area, and establish the underlying zoning. So collectively for this large area, what this would do is this would replace the existing zoning in place. So I'll note that there is a number of zoning categories: suburban ranch. There is a large PAD, planned area development, that encompasses the Amcor site and some of the areas around it. We also have some C2 zoning up at Old Carefree Highway, the southeast corner of that, and Lake Pleasant Parkway. So what we're talking about tonight, this is what's referred to as a flexible zoning bank. So what that does is that, and I'll go through what that is, but that is a structure that allows for some flexibility within the land use categories, because as you can imagine, an area of this size would properties would be auctioned over time and lands would be absorbed over time. If we think back to the Estancia example, that was entitled 30 years ago, and at this point we're about 60% built out. So these things take time to develop and absorb. And so what this allows is it allows for the State Land Department to have a plan that with the land use types that are market ready, so they're flexible. So at the time when they're ready to auction a property, they have a menu of options to offer development community. Now this is important because this provides us, when we do this master planning, with a cohesive vision and strategy for North Peoria. So this is more advantageous as opposed to auctioning off a small piece of property. A development comes in, maybe we have another auction, and there isn't any cohesion or any relationship to all of the different parties. So this is a much more advantageous option, and this allows for us in this effort to unlock land for future development. I think you'll recall in past discussions we've talked about how the city of Peoria is trying to bring about or reset a more sustainable land use plan and land use format. Right now, a lot of our labor force outcommutes to other job centers, whether it's Norterra, downtown Phoenix, or other places. And so we're trying to have a critical mass within the city to grow our jobs base. Amcor is the first step there. They're under construction. They're going to add to that, but we're looking to have a more sustainable land plan as that builds out. So as we approach the property and think about the planning of it, just wanted to note that this is there's a lot of what we call planning determinants, things that inform land use and circulation. So as you look at the map, you can see we have the Agua Fria River to the west. We have a number of wash corridors that crisscross throughout the property. The New River Corridor on the east. We also have drainage systems. The Cap Canal and the Waddell Canal that both cross through the northern portion of the property. We also have utility corridors, that power line corridors. We have the substation in the northern portion of the PIC, and also overhead gas easements that along Lake Pleasant Parkway, namely. We also have a number of critical areas, be it areas of cultural significance, slope conditions, particularly if you think about the area west of Lake Pleasant Parkway, there is a pretty significant drop. We also have a number of other areas that are suitable for natural open space and regional roadways. So a lot of things going on, but this all informs the land use picture. One thing I do want to mention is, so when we started this effort, and we've been talking about the PIC over the last 2 years with the city, it's been a very big effort. It's been very much discussed at the council level and within the community. But one thing to note here is that the Peoria Innovation Corps, about 1/3 of it is not developable. So we've heard some comments in the past that there's concern about this being, perhaps all industrial or all one land use class. That's just not true. Because there's a lot of open space that occurs throughout the area. And not only that, when we see parcels auctioned and developments come in, we have ordinances in place as well that adds to that land use basis, whether it's protecting cultural areas, whether it's protecting hillside areas, natural open space, or if it's a single-family development, we do require additional active open space. So that all comes into play here. So the headline here is that this is a large area, and certainly with all of these determinants, there is room for all classes of land use. So that's important as we look at the land use picture. How can we provide the best, most sustainable plan that also respects and provides a proper transition from areas to the south? What you're looking at here is
Mr. Jacks, I have a quick question.
Yes.
So when you say non-developable, can you go a little bit deeper into that? I mean, what does that mean? Would it take a council vote to change something, or is it just not developable because of the landscape, or what?
Chair Gaynor, members of the commission, so when I say non-developable, these are areas that are state land. They might be within the Agua Fria Channel, or they might be as part of a large floodplain, or within a utility corridor. They can certainly be used for connectivity or open space, but they may not support actual buildings and construction on that land. I should also note too that some of these areas that are drainage ways that they might have a certain rating today. They are certainly open to being modified as we understand the drainage conditions better in that localized area. But that's what they are.
Thank you.
So when you have a large area that you're looking at, it's always instructive to break it into smaller sub-areas. So here we have three, we're calling them core areas within the PIC. So Core 1, which is the area in green, the southern area, so that's all the land all the way up to the 303. That's about 1,900 acres. Core 2, which the city has a large investment in that area, that's the area in yellow, that's about 895 acres. That includes the diocese property and the Amcor property. And then Core 3, that's the large area north of the Cap Canal. It's about 4,545 acres, so a large area in gray there. So as we started this effort with our consultant, Kimley Horn, about a year ago, after we understood all of the land use determinants, then we start talking about and developing what we call bubble plans, but basically trying to get a land use picture of what makes sense in these areas based on the market dynamics, based on access, based on some of the constraints in the area, and the local context. So we develop bubble plans that then identify land use types. Now, the land use types, these are the basis for then developing the zoning regulations that follow. They also inform the various technical reports that we've had to do in this project. So we've put together a master, for example, master traffic report, master water and sewer, master drainage, and electrical demand study. So those are all part of the effort. The bubble plans inform that effort. So just to dive a little deeper, I mentioned zoning bank earlier. So that's again, a flexible zoning structure that the state land department particularly likes, but it works based for their mission, again, being market ready as properties are auctioned and or developed. But the way this works is, and I'll go through in more detail, I'll go through in each core area, but each parcel has a land use assignment. And because this is flexible, the land use assignment, it could be just residential, or it could be a combination of employment, residential, or commercial, right? So it could have a multitude of land use types that are part of that. And then what happens is then it points to a zoning district that we have within the city code. And so, and also within a zoning bank, there might be guardrails. So while we're using the zoning code as its base zoning district, there's going to be some guardrails to address specific edge conditions or context conditions that we want to do as part of this. Now, I should mention that This is not, certainly about a year and a half ago, you might recall, we worked with the State Land Department on the North Peoria Gateway, 1,900 acres, Happy Valley through 303. That was also a zoning bank. I should mention too that this is not dissimilar from zoning entitlements that we've done, particularly with Vistancia. So a developer comes in Vistancia, they have some development options to use, right? They can choose to do one type of residential or a different type of residential, but they have options, they have flexibility. This is not altogether dissimilar from that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to dive a little bit deeper into the core areas, talk about the character that we're looking at, the land use that we're looking at as well, and then also talk about some specific conditions here. So this is south of Loop 303. This is what we call Core 1. So this is an area along Lake Pleasant. There are constraints with some sensitive areas. Again, I mentioned that slope condition west of Lake Pleasant. And in some areas, access can be consideration, or it can be constrained, I should say. I should also mention too, you see the area that's identified with the blue line. That's about 810 acres. A national home builder does have an application in with the State Land Department for that piece. And so we're also in discussion with that home builder. We're also working on the land plan. And so that's 810 acres there. And so what that all shows is residential progression from Pleasant Valley and West Wing Parkway. So there are different densities and types of residential land use that would occur as you get closer to the Loop 303. And I'll go into a little bit more about what that character looks to do. But what we're talking about is a transition from established areas to the north, particularly along the 303 where we expect and are anticipating more intensity. So just to focus firstly on the light yellow, so these are the parcels that directly abut West Wing and Pleasant Valley. So they have a designation here of traditional residential. So what that means is that's the land use type, but in the zoning document, we would only permit detached single-family residential. So this is not an area where you can have, multifamily or commercial, only detached single-family. And in that document, there are some, particularly some minimum lot sizes and some conditions. So one of those conditions that we put on there, it was very important that we have an edge condition that is equivalent or better than what is there today, because we want to be mindful to the residents that live in those areas there. So I want to spend a little bit of time here because later on I'll talk about our open house that we had and some of the comments that we had for some of the residents related to those edge conditions. And in fact, we might have some folks here that want to address those edge conditions. But if I may, if you look at the upper left-hand corner of this slide in gray, so this is what we're talking about, parcels N, O, and P, again, detached single-family only. In the zoning document, as been proposed, it does require a 30-foot buffer. So for any of these abutting residential developments, there has to be a 30-foot landscape buffer before there is any lotting that occurs there. The zoning does allow for 1 and 2 story, and that's typical throughout the city for single-family districts. So just to focus on some of those existing neighborhoods so you understand those conditions so that we can look at how this relates to that. So if you look at the left here with Pleasant Valley, that's been there for, I want to say, about 25 plus years or so. There currently is no buffer. You can see from the aerial, it may be hard to make out. There are some open space breaks, but effectively those lots are right on that boundary condition. So there's no buffer today there. The zoning for Pleasant Valley does allow for 1 and 2 story, and there are homes that are indeed 1 and 2 story. So then if I can draw your attention to the right side of the screen, we'll start with West Wing Pradera. And that's the area, I guess it's got a kind of a blue highlight there. They have a 30-foot drainage corridor that is outside of the residential walls. The zoning for that project does allow for 1 and 2 story. And although most of the homes, I believe, along that line are 1 story, there are, I want to say, 7 2-story homes. Those are on the eastern, I guess, the eastern edge of that line of homes there. So there are mostly 1 story, but there are some 2-story homes there as well. And then to direct your attention on the eastern side, what's called West Wing Alvamar. These are some larger lots, more semi-custom and custom lots there. There are, I believe, let's see, I think there are, I want to say 5 lots along that edge condition. There is no buffer condition, so where those lots are, they're right on the boundary, okay? The zoning for that parcel does allow for 1- and 2-story homes, and these homes happen to be all 1-story, even though the zoning does allow for 2 stories. So again, when you'll probably hear some comment tonight and in the public hearing about the edge conditions, but when this was put together, the interest was to provide an edge condition that provided equivalent than what was there today. So as I mentioned, in many respects, there is no buffer today. We're proposing a 30-foot buffer to provide some separation from that. And because in those zoning cases, they do allow for 1- and 2-story, there was reticence to limit homes to 1-story. And the reason for that is oftentimes when we have these zoning cases that come in and there might be an interest in doing that, we have a specific lotting plan in front of us. We have a specific home builder, and they might work with the neighborhood and may or may not agree to those concessions, right, along that edge condition. Here, while we do have a national home builder that has an application, at the end of the day, we don't know who's going to develop that, right? We don't know if it's going to be home builder X or Y. And so there was just an interest not only to provide that equivalent boundary condition, but not further impair state land property and allow the city and whomever the successor is to work on a lotting plan when that property is auctioned and work with the neighbors in the area there. Just as we're going north of that, the darker yellow, that has, you're going to see a progression of density and flexibility as you go north. That's traditional residential and suburban residential. So we're talking about detached single family here. There could be some attached single family, but we're talking about varied lot sizes, moderate densities in those areas. As you go north of Dixoletta and what's in brown, that's a category that allows for really all residential types. Everything from detached single family, you might have small lot single family, there could be some multifamily as part of that, and if the conditions and access were right, there is the opportunity to do some commercial within that area. So that's, again, that's an area that is right close and proximate to the 303 employment corridor that we're anticipating. And then that last segment there, again, this is an interest of the city to not only expand our format or our template of employment commercial, but also preserve those areas and not have residential consume those areas. So particularly those parcels in purple that are along the 303, they have a residential restriction. So they can only be employment or commercial. Where that changes, though, is if you look to the left-hand side where that is that purple there and light green west of would be in the future 96th Avenue, that would have more flexible land use because the access is a little difficult. Also, with some of the wash conditions, it just provides the opportunity for just a little more flexibility. So you could have some residential or commercial employment there. The other area to point out too is if you go east of Lake Pleasant, along the 303, while it might look like a very advantageous site there, it's got great visibility along the 303, it's got terrible access. We have spacing requirement from an interchange, and so the only way to access that property really is from a location, I want to say at the quarter-mile point, and then somebody's got to bring a road up, so it doesn't have great access, and for that reason, we did allow for a little more flexibility, but later in the discussion, we are also looking at reducing the intensity a little bit there so there isn't the number of trips that it would generate there, just because of the access. All right, and then if we go north, the 303, what we call Core 2. So as you all know, the city was successful in winning the public auction back in August 26th last year. So we won the auction for 845 acres, and so what we achieved that night was a certificate of purchase, or CP, and that basically set forward the structure for a sales agreement. And so what happens is properties are then, the term they use at state land is patented, but that's essentially the process whereby that's the final deed that consummates the deal. So initially, our first foray, we did patent land that we then sold to Amcor, 104 acres to Amcor, and also some lands for right-of-way. So we are currently widening Lake Pleasant Parkway. We are also constructing what's known as Amcor Way that goes east-west. And as I mentioned, the diocese, they have also joined the application. So they are the 60 acres that are immediately north of the Amcor site. So as you look at the land use picture here, I mentioned earlier that bluff, there's about an 80, 90-foot drop-off there. And so we thought that was a great point of delineation for land use. So if you go down the bluff where Amcor is, where you see that purple, that's an area where we thought was reasonable for employment and industrial growth. If you look at the yellow to the far left, residential, why would we put residential there? Well, that's on the west side of the Agua Fria River. The reality is access to that site is very difficult. In fact, the only way you can get there is probably from the Bard Ranch property under the 303, and then if you think about properties north of the 303 there, you're talking about some homesteads, larger lots, and so it doesn't enjoy great access. So it's probably more better residential parcel. And then along Lake Pleasant Parkway, that's a key area. We think there's a key area for commercial, and particularly that triangle in blue, we think is a great regional mixed-use opportunity, just given its proximity. We think that can be, you know, hospitality, it can be residential, commercial, but a great format for mixed use, walkable mixed use in that area. So very important property right there. And then one other thing to mention, it's hard to see on this map, you probably can't see it, but around Amcor there is a residential restriction. I want to say it's about a quarter mile, 1,000 feet maybe around that. So most of the parcels that are in purple, actually all the parcels that are in purple and most of the parcels in Core 2 have a residential restriction, with the exception of that blue one east of Lake Pleasant that could be mixed use, and I believe there's a little bit of red on the north side, west side of Lake Pleasant, but on the north side of that upper bluff, you could have some residential there, but there is a residential restriction around Amcor site. One other thing to mention too that is part of the zoning document is there was an interest in developing a height overlay. So I mentioned earlier the way this document structures, it points to existing zoning districts for the city, right? It might point to the C2 district or our industrial district. And within those districts, there are development standards. Well, there was an interest in and a recognition that the Loop 303, not only an important corridor, but a corridor that could, that we could anticipate more flexibility and potentially more intensity. And we thought it was appropriate to allow in these specified areas more height than maybe the zoning would allow in other areas of the city that maybe were not as well positioned as this area. So this would supersede the height requirements for the zoning districts that it would otherwise point to. So again, it may be difficult to see on the screen, but if you look at it, essentially south of the 303, you're looking at a 72-foot height for those employment and commercial properties. They fan out to 60 feet on the west, 48 feet with that more difficult property to access. As you get north, the Amcor property, 135 feet, and then you can see everywhere from 72, 90, and then 90 on the east side there. As we think about the height, those might feel like big numbers, but really, you know, not only is the Amcor facility today 120 feet, but also think about the Loop 101 corridor. If I can just direct your attention to the Scottsdale Road, Loop 101, I think we see that as an equivalent character for what we're envisioning out here. You have buildings up there that are, you know, 5, 6, 7 stories. You have apartment complexes that are pretty high up as well. They, you know, they are very close to those numbers that we're proposing along this corridor. So very similar. And then as you go north of the cap, I mean, the reality is the crystal ball is just less clear. The other thing too, as I mentioned, you're dealing with a lot of those constraints and challenges with the canals, the overhead power lines. There's a substation in the northwest quarter part of that. So that's why, because of these constraints, the areas that you see in purple, particularly on the western side, we think those could be good areas to target employment or industrial uses. We think that's appropriate, particularly if you look at the 74 and Lake Pleasant Parkway, where the old former glider school is located, we think that's an excellent location for a future master plan community. So in that regard, we would be looking for a developer to come in and master plan that whole piece as one integrated unit. It could include, single family, some commercial, public facilities, but it would be planned really as one master plan within a larger master plan. Also, looking along the Lake Pleasant corridor, again, that's where you'll see a lot of the mixed uses because it's just the picture is just a little more uncertain. So along Lake Pleasant, of course, there is the opportunity for commercial. There's also the opportunity for residential. We'll see where the market takes us in those areas. And then along the eastern part, we're showing a connector from the 303-74. That is currently on our general plan today. So that does provide a reliever condition in those areas because we don't ultimately know when or if this connector would be realized. It does provide for a more flexible land use picture in those areas. So as we embarked on this effort, we started with developing a website, a hosted website by our consultant that was linked from the city's webpage. We put together a narrated presentation that was the basis for a virtual open house that we had. So again, you can see the website address on there, but this is the location where if you go there, you can see all the information that's been developed for the PIC. So all of the maps, the project materials, the notices. I mean, if you go there today, you can see the zoning document, the narrative report. So that's all there. There's also the opportunity for the public not only to watch the presentation at their convenience, but also to provide the city with comments, concerns. So as we put this open house together and this website together, there was a number of notification methods that we utilized. We provided notice within the weekly newspaper. We shared through Nextdoor. Our consultant mailed notices out to within a half-mile radius, so in all about 1,100 mailers were sent, also to all the HOAs within those areas. So initially, we had a huge rush of comments and questions. Overall, to date, we've had about over 3,400 visitors to the site, so it is getting a lot of traffic and attention. We've received 4 hotline calls and web inquiries, and so when we get these calls and inquiries, so we'll address the questions right away, but they form the basis of FAQs that we've developed and that continue to grow as we get more questions on the case. Now, if I was to characterize what we've heard so far through the virtual open house comment cards, we got a lot of comments initially about, hey, can we just keep the area open space? Why are we developing it? But as we've talked in past meetings, this is state land. We all know state land is not open space or preserve. It's going to be auctioned and developed someday, right? Also, we had some specific comments about edge conditions, particularly those existing neighborhoods that are on the southern portion of the site, and also questions about, why are we doing this? Tell us more about the planning, why this is important, and talk about the process that we're going to embark on. And then continuing on, we had a virtual open house. We had this on January 29th at Copper Hills Church. It was a great location for the open house. In that effort, we provided notices to all properties within a quarter-mile radius that meets our code, and all HOAs within a mile. We posted the site. There are signs posted on the site, not only advertising that meeting, but future public hearings. We conducted an open house format, so we had a number of stations that were spread throughout. We had boards that were specific to Core 1, Core 2. We had boards on traffic and trails and so forth. We had about 42 people that over that 2-hour period that attended the meeting. So I thought it was a very successful meeting. We heard a lot of good comments. All of us had the opportunity to talk to different people. In that meeting, we did receive 2 comment cards. Those comment cards specifically, they talked about open space and trails. We had one comment, a desire for no data centers anywhere, so it was a very specific comment that we received. And then we had some discussion with some neighbors about the edge conditions again, that coming back to edge conditions with those established neighborhoods there. So just to talk through the next steps, again, we've been working on this for better part of a year or so. This is our 3rd update or study session with the commission. Our objective would be to try to answer any questions we can. We are advertised to come back to the commission on March 5th and seek your recommendation, and then heading on to the city council on March 17th. So with that, I know I talked through a lot of things, but I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Jacks. Do we have any questions?
Mr. Hawkes, the meeting on March 5th, that's where we're going to make our recommendation to city council on this
Mr.
proposed
Chair,
land use
Commissioner
plan?
Fido, that is correct. That's the schedule as we have it.
Okay. That's it.
That's what happens when I read something. Thank you for the correction. All right, go ahead. Mr. Control.
Thank you, Mr. Hawkes. One question is going to be a little self-serving on the diocese property, obviously.
Okay.
I'm involved with that. But, so they are a part of this, and they are in agreement with, they're in agreement, I'm assuming, with the employment industrial that you're putting on the property. And two, when they put a church and a school or whatever they're going to do, is that going to be allowed in that industrial site?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Cottrell, Commissioners, great question. Yes, they are absolutely part of the application. They are a co-applicant. We have a letter of authorization from them. And I think as we developed the infrastructure and we had those consultations, they understood the type of character that we were envisioning out here. But to answer your question more directly, the way the zoning document is structured, they have the same land use type as Amcor. And you remember that island of purple around there? Mm-hmm. So that's going to allow for not only some commercial land uses, it could allow for industrial land uses as well. But just to also mention, if they choose to develop their church campus, again, they have existing zoning for a church campus. So we wrote it in very specifically and clearly in there that they could have a church campus and related facilities. So they have the option of doing that or pursuing a different direction.
Okay. And then second is more of a comment, and I see all the potential open spaces the way you marked it. And I'm very familiar with the area. I go out there all the time. And so those are all steep slopes, all kinds of trails, I get it. I would like to see a little more firm language, just like the one comment you said you had there. Open space, open space, open space. I don't know if that could be made a little more firm through some of these with some language, or just be a little stronger language to make sure that that does happen. And not, hey, I'm clever, I can build across this 20-foot drop with some huge retaining walls, and it's just potential. I'd like to see a little more force behind that.
Chair Gaynor and Commissioner Cottrell. So as I mentioned earlier, some of those areas, just by the nature of their flood condition or under a power line, they're not developable. Other areas might have the ability to be modified. But as I mentioned too, we have some ordinances in place that go beyond those constraints that would require protection of some of those critical areas that we talked about, whether they're cultural, it might be hillsides, they might be we have a desert lands ordinance, all those things would come into play. And again, as I mentioned, for residential, there are new active open space areas that have to provide us as part of that.
Thank you, Mr. Cottrell. Okay, I have a question for staff. So I'd like to call up Mr. Robert Kay. I'm going to ask him to actually say his name so I don't mess it up like you, Mr. Hackett.
He's an old friend of the department.
Yeah, and I don't have to open or close a public meeting. Great. And sir, can you state your name and address and then give me back the podium for a second?
Yes, by all means, Chair Gaynor. My name is Robert Kufus. Last name is Kuhfuss. And my wife and I reside at, and we own the property at 9210 West White Feather Lane. And that is in the Pradera subdivision that Mr. Hawkes had mentioned before.
Thank you, Mr. Kufus. Before you start, though,
Sure.
I'd like to, Commissioner Fider called my attention to the fact that you are former staff in the city of Peoria. You're retired from the city of Peoria.
Mr.
And
Chairman.
I want to welcome you back.
Yes, thank you very much. Yes, I was, I've been in the business now for 26 years, worked for 4 different jurisdictions in various capacities, and I had the opportunity to be here for 3 years, and I was able to retire and then pick up a post-retirement gig elsewhere. So I've been very, very blessed in that regard. So I'm happy to be here. My wife and I moved into this subdivision in 2018, and then frankly have been waiting since then to have this very conversation because we knew it was going to come up at some point in time.
Well, share your thoughts with us. I'll give you about 3 minutes if you don't mind. And again, welcome back. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
back. Thank
I appreciate it. When I came here this evening, I was under the impression that I would not have the opportunity to necessarily speak, so I didn't have a prepared statement. So I'm just kind of going off in my head here, so please bear with me. You know, we are supportive of this case. This is really kind of an unprecedented opportunity to get out in front of 7,300 acres of land and get it pre-zoned and ready to go. As Mr. Hawk has said, you know, it sets it up for the state land department. And I'm very familiar with the land department's mission and very supportive of that mission. And it sets this land up to be market ready, and that's very important for them. It also, you know, I think provides an opportunity for the city of Peoria to understand what their potential infrastructure needs are going to be over the course of time, and so they'll be able to plan ahead for that. And then, of course, it gives the developers some certainty as to what they are actually bidding on when it's time to actually bid for that. So we're supportive of that. Of the request. We did have some concerns, as Mr. Hawk has pointed out, you know, about the edge conditions. And if I could just paint a picture, you know, our north wall of our property is, you know, we're in the Peoria subdivision. The north boundary of our property is exactly 30 feet south of parcel 1P. And so if you're looking across our fence to the north, you know, you'll see some natural vegetation. And then, of course, as you get to the west, closer to Lake Pleasant Parkway, that area is pretty banged up. You know, that's where that old, I think it was an old airport, a private airstrip there. So it's been scraped, it's been banged up, and so it's, you know, not very pretty, to be honest with you. But as you move from there to the east, the terrain starts to grow, starts to decline a little bit, and the vegetation becomes thicker, more dense. And so our fear is that, our concern is that, you know, even with a 30-foot buffer, there's a 30-foot on our side and 30-foot on the parcel 1P side, that, you know, as you know, the developer isn't going, they're going to do as minimal amount of earthwork as they possibly can. And, you know, because they're not going to spend money just for the sake of spending money. But what they're going to have to do is basically climb that hill. And, you know, it doesn't rise to the level of 10% slope, but they're still going to have to climb that hill, and they'll be terracing those lots as they're climbing up that hill. And my fear is that, you know, what we're going to see is this edge condition that is going to be this tunnel of 30-foot tall houses on top of these terraces climbing up that hill. And so there's a couple ways to mitigate that. One might be to push to increase the size of the buffer, and I suggested in my letter, I believe you have it in your packet, that perhaps, excuse me, okay, thank you, I appreciate that. All right. Well, one way might be to increase the width of that buffer, just to kind of push it out. I suggested 60 feet, an additional 30 feet, but, you know, maybe that's not the number. You know, maybe there's some other number that might work. And I also suggested holding the height of that edge, the southernmost row of houses to 20 feet is what I suggested. Maybe 20 feet is not the right answer. And it's not a matter of restricting to single story, because, you know, it's a matter of restricting the height. My wife and I lived in a house that was single story and it was 27 feet high. So that's not the issue. The issue is trying to not have that tunnel effect as you're looking through that area. Like I said, I didn't anticipate coming here to speak tonight, so just kind of running from the top of my head here, but I do appreciate the opportunity to speak here. And I would, you know, my ask would be that over the course of the next couple of weeks, as you're preparing for the actual public hearing, you know, that you know, give that some consideration, and maybe, you know, like I say, increase the buffer. You know, maybe even with the landscaping, I mentioned that the landscaping is kind of banged up on that farther end. Well, maybe it's a combination of preserving the native landscaping in situ while enhancing the not so native landscaping and restoring it to a native condition. And so I thank you for your time and
No, thank you, sir. Well, you didn't anticipate, but you did wait a long time, so it's the least we could do. I really appreciate you sharing your thoughts. Do I have any questions? Yeah, Mr. Cottrell?
I have one comment there. Good to see you again, Robert.
Thank you.
Is there potential maybe for adding within those buffer conditions a height relative to natural grade? So you say 1 story or 30 feet from natural grade, or 2 story or 45, whatever the numbers would be, which would prevent that retaining condition where the house is kind of perched up an extra 5 or 6 feet above natural grade. Trying to make it so that when you're in that condition, you're looking out, you're used to seeing that, okay, another house that's at a similar grade as me is fine. Another house that's 10 feet higher than me is not fine.
Commissioner Commissioner Cottrell, we have had those discussions, of course, with the State Land Department. They are the landowner there. And so, at this point, they were willing to provide a condition that they felt was equivalent or better than what's there today. But again, as I mentioned earlier, and we can continue to have this conversation with them, but they were reticent towards, because they don't know the home builder, they don't know the lotting program is going to be, and so to provide to prescribe a condition today when that is an unknown condition, there was some reticence in offering that at this point.
Would there be, I'm assuming there would be an opportunity, this is treated more like a general land map type of thing, and there'd be a rezoning, a PAD that goes before that, and we would still have an opportunity to maybe make those more specific suggestions?
Chair Gaynor, Commissioner Cottrell, actually, the application would establish the zoning. So in this case, right, it would point to, there are zoning districts within the PCD document that would identify land uses and development standards. So this establishes the zoning here. Correct, yep. This is one large PCD. Yep.
Thank you, Commissioner Cottrell. Any more questions? Thank you, Commissioner Vider. Okay, thank you so much for coming tonight. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
You and your wife, thank you, and be careful going home. You might want to wait till we're done so you can hang out the whole time. Thank you. All right, next on the agenda is call to the public on non-agenda items. Are there any requests for public comment from the audience? I guess no. Okay, since seeing none, let's move to our next agenda item, which is reports from staff.
Chair, Commission, I have the privilege to identify that March 5th is our next engagement, so we do look forward to that endeavor. We are, however, giving you a spring break, so March 19th is being canceled. Please enjoy responsibly, and I'll put a plug in for spring training. It is starting tomorrow. So it will be going on all month, including all the way through March. So you do have an opportunity to enjoy a game on the 19th, should you wish to. Followed by April 2nd. That will be our next available, next regular meeting. What I will say is, I think we've discussed before, we are targeting potential moving back into new council chambers. We will be giving you an update on that relatively soon. We do expect first meeting back to be May in new chambers. So we'll probably invite you to come check it out, enjoy it a little bit in advance. We'll walk you through new technology and we'll go from there. That's all I had. Chris, anything else?
Nope, nothing further from me.
Thank you. And with that, if there are no more reports, I'll ask for commission updates or commissioner updates and reports on current events.
I just have one. I've had the opportunity to serve on this commission for many, many years, and I just want to welcome Commissioner Hutchinson back to the commission. I had a great time serving with him for many, many years. He took a little hiatus, and we're very fortunate to have him back. So, welcome back.
Appreciate that, bud, and happy to be back, and appreciate all of the reporting tonight. I was inspired to really come back. The new development up north, the PIC, the jobs that are going to come with that. I really wanted to be here and help see that, see that through. And I can tell you, I've realized as I'm sitting up here that April, we bought our house in Peoria 30 years ago, this April. I'm 36 years in the construction industry, and I've spent almost all of that time traveling to Chandler, traveling to Queen Creek, Tempe, points east of here. And to hear we are finally living up to live, work, and play in your own town, I'm looking forward to the 101 not being crowded anymore, because we're working right here in our own city. And you guys all deserve to be commended for the work that you've done to put this finally together for this city. This is a legacy for you guys, really is. And I think I'm very excited to see what's coming in the coming years. So thanks, guys.
Thank you, Commissioner Hutchinson. Man, I wish I would have welcomed him. Well, I did welcome you, but not like Commissioner Fighter.
We worked well together.
Yeah, no, welcome back.
We did work well together.
It's a pleasure to have you. Thank you. Thank you for those words. And I concur. It's amazing to work with you, Peoria. City of Peoria staff is just amazing to work with. I appreciate it. And with that,
Commissioner Gaynor?
oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No worries, I'll be brief. I think we've all shared how elated we are to have Commissioner Hutchinson back. I'm very excited to have you back. I still remember, I think that might have been about 6 years ago, right, when I was appointed to the commission, and you were just great. There was a lot of just collaborative discussion. There was so much that you brought, and when I saw your name come across our screen that you would be back, I said, now that's amazing. More than anyone, you've been an advocate, and if you love this city that much, that you don't just come back once, but you come back twice just to serve, that just speaks to your character, and so we're excited to have you back. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep, please, I think we're going to call on all of you. So go ahead.
Well, I'm actually going to go back to the pick, if that's okay. I was just looking at some of the documentation, and on one of the maps, I'm a little sensitive because you guys have a fire department placed north of Carefree Highway, but there's no police department, so I'm a little hurt. But I know, we're getting defunded. But I'm assuming, because I know most of Peoria, they're shared facilities, and I'm assuming that one is too. But if it's not, it is something that needs to be considered, because I know not having police resources up there could be an issue. So I'm hoping that will be a shared, maybe put an F and a P. So,
Commissioner Gia, thank you for that. It's just a marker right now where we continue to do across the board to do capital facilities planning, so that map could certainly be, yeah.
And before I adjourn, I'm going to ask Commissioner Control to make a comment.
I don't have anything, but ditto. How's that? I think I'm ready to head home.
Okay. So with that, I call this meeting adjourned. Thank you so much, everyone.